Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Our objective is clear, and that is to degrade and destroy ISIL so that it's no longer a threat. If we are joined by the international community, we can continue to shrink ISIL's sphere of influence, its effectiveness, its financing, its military capabilities, to the point where it is a manageable problem.
I rest my case. The show is now over. Welcome to the Savage Nation. I rest my case that the leadership of the United States and the EU are insane, totally insane. They have no idea what they are doing. They'd rather go to war with Putin than with ISIS. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Today, of course, is Wednesday, if you haven't checked. Many of you are still on vacation, which I find amazing. Corporate welfare is astounding. You say welfare is out of control. I can't get in touch with anyone in corporations. They're gone. 4-day weekends, 6-day weekends, 7-day weekends. Well, I was here on Labor Day. I get a halo for that. I did a great show on the sanctity of labor. Yesterday's show was about the Islamo Klux Klan, the IKK, which is being called every name under the sun except what it is. It's Hitler in a headscarf. And today I'm going to shock you by telling you I think that the reason Obama appears to be dragging his feet and sending conflicting signals about ISIS, so-called, is because he and ISIS are one and the same. I know you say, what, are you crazy? All right, listen to me. Before you turn that dial, I want to ask you something. During an appearance on Fox News today, General Thomas McInerney said that the United States helped build ISIS. And that's a quote. You see, ISIS was obtaining weapons from our consulate in Benghazi. Remember the Benghazi story? Remember Ambassador Chris Stevens? Remember Hillary Clinton? Remember all of that scandal? Remember we all talked about the fact that there were rumors on the internet that Chris Stevens' main job in Libya was to transfer all the weapons that Gaddafi had to the so-called rebels in Syria to overthrow Assad. And then all of a sudden they let Chris Stevens get killed. He was knocked off because of what he knew, some of you were saying, and what he knew about. Mainly that this government was actually arming terror-loving Islamists who have later been redesignated ISIS. They used to be called rebels, the Syrian Free Army. Remember? McCain, the warmongering, foaming-mouthed lunatic who belongs in Creedmoor Mental Hospital, along with Barack Hussein Obama, were trying to overthrow Assad. Now, they couldn't do it openly because they knew that most Americans were tired of war, number one. And number two, it made no sense. Although Assad's a monster, he is able to maintain some semblance of order in Syria. He kept these bastards under control. And if we kill him through ISIS, which is what I think they're going to do, you're going to see the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of Christians and Alawites. Now they're killing reporters, right? Now, if you accept that ISIS may be America's proxy army and that we've been supplying them with weapons through the CIA, and there are people who can prove it, by the way. There are people who can prove that what I just said is true. We have been supplying ISIS directly or indirectly with weapons for a long time, and not only weapons in the form of the weapons that came out of Libya through Chris Stevens, but weapons per se have been flowing in there. America has become the lapdog of who then? Why are we doing this? Why would this country secretly be arming ISIS? Why? Why would we be doing that? What's the end goal here? The end goal is the overthrow of Assad, of Syria. That's the end goal. Just as they decapitated the leadership of Libya, again, a strong man, Gaddafi, an evil man, but he was able to hold the psychotic Islamists in check. And he warned us that if we got rid of him, you're going to see Libya descend into chaos. He said it will become another Somalia run by warlords. Well, that's exactly what's happened. It didn't stop Hillary Clinton from cackling with her girlfriend saying, we came, we saw, he died, he. So everything Hillary Clinton has touched has been a disaster in terms of American foreign policy. That's number one. So don't think it's just Obama. Don't think that for a minute. That's why some are saying that this country, this administration, is not really dragging its heels in its response to these beheadings and the blitzkrieg that we're seeing going on in Iraq and Syria by ISIS, but because they're actually working with them, not hand in glove, but at a distance. Do you believe me or not? Is it too confusing for you? I mean, is this too confusing to follow? Should I stop it? Because I can stop it. I believe that Washington and its NATO and EU allies are totally insane. They're on the wrong side of history. They're trying to start a war with Russia. They would rather start a war with Russia in Ukraine over energy than crush forever the Islamo-Klux Klan that's emerging in Iraq and Syria, which threatens us here in this country. So I would ask you a question, if you want to join the conversation, to you, the average listener of the Savage Nation. And that is this: who is a bigger threat to America's national security interests? Obama? Excuse me, who is a bigger threat to America's national security interests? ISIS or Putin? Is it Putin that's our biggest national security threat? You mean Russia threatens us? Do you understand what's going on here? Do you understand that without Russia we couldn't even get our men to the International Space Station because Obama destroyed NASA? One of Obama's first acts was to decimate NASA so that we could no longer fly our own men to the International Space Station. In other words, he decapitated our capacity to lead in space. He then decapitated our military, taking out all of the combat commanders who might have opposed him. And I have their names. I document all of this in my forthcoming book, Stop the Coming Civil War. It's all there for you. Why do you think I'm bothering doing this? What do you think? I want to make a quick buck out of fear? Is that why I'm doing this? No, it's not why I'm doing this. It's because I want to stop the coming civil war. You say, what are you, crazy? There's not going to be another civil war. We're in a civil war. Obama has declared war on America's traditional values, and I stand by that statement. Obama has declared war on America's traditional values and dominant culture. Need I spell it out for you? You want me to spell it out for you in plain English? I already did. We're in a civil war. It's not yet a shooting war, but we're in a civil war. This radical hooligan and Eric Holder and the women surrounding them, these hooligans who've seized power, have declared a war on America. Now, how do you not see that? They busted our border with Mexico. They flooded America with illegal children from Guatemala and El Salvador without the stroke of a pen. He brought them in. They're flooding into our schools now. Borders are gone. Our language is decimated. Our culture has been spit upon. So what do you mean he hasn't declared war on America? He is the smoothest operator I've ever seen. This man can lie so perfectly that you don't even know he's lying. I can see it. I see the eyes change. I see the hooded eyes. I saw him do it just now from Estonia, or wherever he is. I think he's in England now, or Wales. There must be a good golf course. I suspect there's a better golf course in Wales than there is in Estonia. So he stopped in Wales. I understand they have nice golf courses there. I'm surprised he didn't ask for the meeting in Scotland, which has the best golf courses, of course. Should have demanded that there be an international security meeting in Scotland so we get a few putts in on the links. I wish he'd get a few links in rather than a few putts in. What do you think of anything I'm saying? Have you turned the radio off or on? Are you listening? Well, let's do a little sound for you. If you think this country has not been penetrated by Islamists, not only would I disagree with you, but so would every expert who dares speak the truth. Former CIA agents, former generals who are now able to talk. You can't blame them for not talking when they were working for the government because they would have been stripped of their pensions. God knows what would have happened. Former CIA operatives are saying ISIS cells are in the U.S. and they're capable of striking. Even CNN is reporting that. Even sad sack CNN is reporting that. Would you believe it? Believe this? Even sad sack CNN is reporting that ISIS cells are here in the U.S. and they're capable of striking us. But I believe that the Sharia the movement towards Sharia law, soft Sharia law, has already taken place in this country. I'm going to play for you some sounds that should have every American alarmed. I want you to listen to Jimmy Carter, who's long been one of the most, well, I don't have to categorize him. Just by saying Jimmy Carter, his name, it becomes a verb. The word Jimmy Carter itself, the two words together, could be a new verb. For, you know Benedict Arnold? We say, oh, Benedict Arnold, you right away know who that was. Jimmy Carter and Benedict Arnold are one and the same. Listen to him at the Islamic Society of North America's annual convention recently, where he says the principles of Allah will bring peace to the world. Listen.
And I hope that all of you will use the principles of Allah and our God to bring peace and justice to all. Thank you very much.
Now, it's true that this grifter from Georgia, Jimmy Carter, makes tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars from Arab countries. That's why he supports Hamas. He's a stone-hearted Jew hater right down to the core. In that sense, he agrees with most of the right wing in this country. See, that's where the right wing, who hates Jews in Israel, and Jimmy Carter really get along. They ought to consider getting some of that strychnine that him and his family apparently drink while performing their satanic rituals down there in the swamps. But the fact of the matter is, here he goes before the Islamic Society and says the principles of Allah will bring peace and justice to all. Well, my friend, you ought to read the Quran, because it calls for the conquest of the world and the conversion of everyone to Islam. I guess he didn't see that part of the book. He must have read I think he must have read the Cliff Notes version of the Quran. I suspect Jimmy Carter got the Cliff Notes version. Now it gets worse, because Jimmy Carter can be dismissed as a former whatever he was, president, I suppose, and he's no longer in office, so they all do it anyway, and they're all sellout, prostitutes. Take a look at that guy, Eric Cantor. Eric Cantor posed as a conservative. Then when push came to shove, he was in favor of amnesty. He got fired, remember that? Remember that little shock a few months ago? And he took a job in Wall Street for $1.2 million a year. Amazing, isn't it? Now listen to John Ketchup Kerry in clip 4.
The real face of Islam is not what we saw yesterday, when the world bore witness again to the unfathomable brutality of ISIL terrorist murderers, when we saw...
Okay, let's stop right here. Now, he says that was not the real face of Islam, but I would think that if you interviewed the folks from ISIS, they would say, we are the real face of Islam, because they kill Muslims who are not the real face of Islam. In other words, they say the real face of Islam is being a bloodthirsty murderer who kills anybody in their way, Muslims included. So either Kerry doesn't know what he's talking about, or again, he's lying. In either case, do you care about any of this? In the next hour, I have a different kind of story coming up. In the New York Post over the weekend, there was a story about sex, drugs, rock and roll, sex with inmates, sex with guards, drugs from guards, drugs to prisoners at Rikers Island in New York City, one of New York's and America's toughest prisons. And she will be with us in the middle of the next hour to tell us the inside story of Rikers Island. And we have to ask ourselves, is this limited to Rikers Island? Drugs and sex being traded? She says that the minute new female guards appeared, they were traded off amongst the female guards for sex. And if they didn't comply with the female guards and give the other female guards sex, they were given the worst assignments in the prison. And those who did comply with sex with the female guards were allowed not even to report to work and collect their check. You hear this? That's in the next hour. Well, that's the good news. If you'd like to stay tuned, the bad news is going to come real shortly right here on the Savage Nation. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUY-COIN.
Our objective is clear, and that is to degrade and destroy ISIL so that it's no longer a threat, not just to Iraq, but also to the region and to the United States. In order for us to accomplish that, the first phase has been to make sure we've got an Iraqi government that's in place and that we are blunting the momentum that ISIL was carrying out, and the airstrikes have done that.
I have never heard a bigger liar in my life. This man is getting away with treason every day of the week, and no one challenges this guy. It's, look, maybe I'm in the business too deeply. Maybe it's because I study this on a daily basis that I see the cancer for what it is. And I really don't blame the average listener for not wanting to listen to the analysis of the best oncologist in the political world. I'm the best oncologist in the political sphere in this country. And I think that the cancer has metastasized. I do not understand how he can get away with saying things like this. When with one hand he says he's striking ISIS because people are screaming, do something. On the other hand, he's going as slowly as he can. On the other hand, he does things which seem to support this blitzkrieg that's going on from these Islamofascists. Now, the next caller has it all put together. Kathy on WMAC in Georgia. Listen to this woman. Kathy, say it like it is.
Yeah, we got a man who actually went into Benghazi in Libya, and they are running guns. They got 11 jetliners missing now, and they got Obama, this is August 14th, ignores Congress and lifts ban on Libyans attending flight schools.
Right. Let's slow down. That's right. On August 14th, this duplicitous president of ours, without Congress, because we have no Congress, lifted the ban on Libyans coming to America for flight training. Now we find out that the warlords who took over Libya have stolen 11 jetliners. Are you putting the pieces together for us?
Oh, yeah.
If you start to put these pieces together, you have to say it's much worse than we all think.
9/11 all of a sudden became good when the Obama administration came into power. They took out the CIA in Pakistan in 2010. And then he outed the one in 2011. And I could just go on and on and on.
But Kathy, stay on the line. Here's a caller who knows more about the news than the whole team at CNN put together. This woman has more insight in her pinky than Don Lemon has in his entire body. Did you hear what she said? Obama lifted the ban on Libyans coming here for flight training in the middle of August. And then, yesterday, we learned that the Libyans have stolen 11 jetliners.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Savage Nation, a guide for the perplexed. And believe me, the labyrinth that is called the Middle East and the world is very hard to follow. And I don't blame people for turning it off and worrying about whether they can get onto the iCloud and see naked pictures of B and C grade Hollywood starlets who no one cares about. And, of course, that's the highest priority of Obama's FBI right now. It's not uncovering the sleeper cells in America, but who published the naked photos of the starlets. Because, after all, that's what makes America run, which is drugs, sex, and rock and roll, I suppose. Meanwhile, the Islamofascists are on the move with their blitzkrieg across Iraq and Syria, on the order of what Hitler did in the early days of World War II with his blitzkrieg, using our tanks, no less, which we gave them. Never forget that Obama eliminated the airplanes that can kill tanks, and then they stole the tanks, allegedly, from the Iraqi army that fled. Now they have our M1A Abrams, and we're not. Why are we not destroying those tanks? We have the capacity to destroy them. So ask yourself why Obama has not gone after the tanks. He blows up a truck, and that doofus admiral gets up there, that pathetic admiral, and tells us how they blew up a truck. It must have cost us $100 million to blow up a truck with 3 killers on it. We haven't blown up one M1A Abrams tank yet. You know why? Because they want them in Syria to overthrow Assad. So why do they want them in Syria to overthrow Assad is the question. Why? What's so important about that? It's not that they want to see Christians slaughtered. It's always about the money. Don't you understand that? Don't you understand it's always about the money? If you look at a map, you have to look at Saudi Arabia. The king of Saudi Arabia, who warned last week that ISIS will reach Europe by next month and the U.S. a month after that, has one thing in mind, and that is to destroy Assad in Syria because of money. Because of money, because of the pipeline that is going to be running in that area, bringing some of Russia's oil into the area. Instead of fighting ISIS, Obama really wants a war with Russia. So guess who else is in competition with Saudi Arabia and who was in cahoots with Iran, Syria, and now China? The answer is Russia. Your president is so incompetent that he has now forged an alliance between Russia and China after a negotiation over the oil pipeline that took several years. Putin has finalized the deal between Russia and China. And instead of shipping his oil to Europe, he's going to start transshipping his oil through a pipeline to China. China's very happy to take the oil, probably out of the Caspian Sea and out of the oil fields. And China loves the oil. China's hungry for the energy. And so this is a big threat to the 5 sister oil companies in America. This is a huge threat to the EU crooks, thieves, and degenerates who absolutely want to steal the energy sources under the ground in Ukraine. You see, it's an energy war again. It's war for oil, if you want to put it that way. And I guess you have to understand it's always about money. War is always about power and money. But don't be deceived. I think that ISIS is the ally of this administration. Not overtly. They're against the beheadings. I mean, those fellas went a little too far. Oh, they went a little too far here. There's another interesting point about the beheading of Mr. Sotloff, which is that he was a dual citizen between Israel and the United States, which I found very interesting to learn a day after he was beheaded. Foley certainly was an American citizen. Don't know whether he was I think he was a USAID worker as well, by the way, which is it's an interesting part of the story. In other words, USAID is CIA. Sotloff may have been CIA. We don't know. I mean, we don't know that. We're not going to know that. But there are elements that you have to know. But let's go back to the last caller who has more knowledge in her pinky than all of CNN's reporters put together. She put 2 and 2 together, something Wolf Blitzer hasn't been able to do since he first learned to tie his shoes from his mother when he was 2 years old. And she said 2 weeks ago, or a month ago rather, Obama, with the stroke of a pen, eliminated a law which prohibited Libyans from coming to America to gain flight training. Then we wake up yesterday and find out that the Libyan militias have stolen 6 jetliners in Libya from the airport of Tripoli, and that they may be getting ready for another 9/11. And what, they're here in this country taking flight training? And you're telling me this is, again, not impeachable, not questionable? Don't ask the Fuhrer and don't question the Fuhrer? Don't second-guess the Fuhrer? You're not allowed? You're called a racist if you second-guess the Fuhrer? What the hell is wrong with you people? Kathy, welcome back to the Savage Nation. You really have won the gold prize today.
But I'll tell you another thing. You're talking about oil. From the time Benghazi hit, we have so many prison breaks from Yemen to Pakistan to China. China's been being attacked. So basically they're using this little terror army mob to take care of the people so they can get the land and do their gas and their oil thing. That's correct.
Well, let's go back. How did you put together the Libyan flight training connected to the seizure of the airliners? What made you come to that?
Watch the news. I turned the news off 2 years ago, but I like to read, and I read all kind of news stories and this, that, and the other thing. I have a very good memory, and I know history pretty well, and I can see things, kind of like what you talk about. You know, you can put things together. And so that's basically what I did. From the prison breaks, we got 400 heat-seeking missiles missing from Libya, all those missiles missing from Libya. They armed the people down there in Libya. They called it Operation Footprint or some kind of crap.
Well, hold on. Let's slow down for a minute. So you're part of the group that believes that Ambassador Stevens was permitted to be killed because he knew the secrets of the transfer of arms from Libya, from the stockpiles of Libyan arms to the rebels in Syria. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes. So in other words, Ambassador Stevens was purposely assassinated.
In there, and it's very easy to put together if you just lay it all out.
Why is it that so many people who consider themselves rationalists or sophisticates or liberals laugh at a person like you? Why is that?
I don't know. I have a friend like that, and he doesn't even consider himself a liberal. I think it's because, I'm not really sure, because they are actually on the side of the other side, or they just don't know. I don't see how anybody knows anything watching the news. That if you only get your news from CBS at 6 o'clock or even from CNN, you don't know anything that's going on. Nothing.
What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen if there's another 9/11 size attack in this country, or even something smaller? What do you think will happen in this country?
Oh, well, they'll come in to take over then. It'll be so bad that they have to, because this is what they're doing. They're destroying countries and nations to make it.
No. Wait, listen to me. What if there's another 9/11 attack in this country? Do you think the people will finally rise up, come together, and do what needs to be done to save this country and themselves? Or do you think that Obama will use that as a pretext to declare martial law and to round people up in the middle of the night using the NDAA, which he passed on a New Year's Eve while everybody was partying? See, I think the latter is going to happen.
That's what he wants to happen, but I pray to God every night that the people wake up. But we're
all right.
Really,
you're a great listener, and Kathy, I'll tell you what, we're going to put you as the first recipient, and Doug, record this, please. I'm going to start giving out free copies of Stop the Coming Civil War once the book is published. You're the first that's going to receive a free copy. You won the gold prize today. Your analysis is brilliant. I'm sure you would be laughed at behind your back if you went to a cocktail party at Michael Bloomberg's townhouse in Manhattan, because they're so smart, those people. You know, they're so sophisticated. They know everything. And therefore they would laugh at you because, after all, you don't sound like you're from New York. You don't sound like you went to Vassar and had your brain washed. You heard of waterboarding. Well, they do more than waterboarding at these Ivy League colleges. It's worse than waterboarding what they do to the brains of the children. All right, Kathy in Macon, Georgia. I said it wrong. I can't say Macon. That's because I speak too much French. It's Macon in France. There's a very good wine, incidentally. How do you say it's Mason, Georgia? Macon? Macon. Why don't they spell it that way? Makeon. Why not phonetic? I know. Why do they have to spell it